So welcome to episode 5, everybody, of Level Up, our weekly Q&A show where your questions drive our conversation. If you're watching on LinkedIn just right now, great to see you, great to meet you, or on YouTube, then please do follow the links that we'll post in the chat to register, and we'll send you over to Slido, which is really where you get to join in and drive the show by adding questions that you would like the panel to answer and voting up the ones that you most are interested in. Without your questions, well, we'll just have to talk amongst ourselves. So please do head over there, join in and take part. The first half of the show is general Q&A, and this week's theme is all about organisational agility. What it is, how do you get it, and is it worth it when you arrive there? Do you even know when you've got organisational agility kind of fully under control? We're going to explore all of that. So please do jump over into Slido and ask any question relating to organisational agility. In the second half, we choose a topic where we want to spend a little bit more time, and more on that later. So let's meet our panel for today. We're going to start over in South Africa and welcome back Guy Eastoe, who's the owner at Snaptech International. Welcome, Guy.
Yes, hello everybody. Guy Eastoe. I'm here in South Africa, where it's pretty chilly at the moment. I'm a Scrum Master, trainer, consultant in Agile, change management, and anything involving project and program management.
Okay, thank you very much, Guy. Most welcome back. And in stark contrast, the UK is actually a little warmer than we would have expected it to be. So let's hop over to the Netherlands and welcome back also Jeroen Geurtsen, who is the director at Zest Academy, also returning today as a panelist. Hi, Jeroen. It's great to have you back.
Yes, and it's nice in Schiedam in the Netherlands. And yes, as Zest Academy, but also more than 20 years now as a trainer, very much as a consultant and coach, helping our customer organizations in the agile and digital transformation. Nice experience. And also already several years member of the Agile Business Consortium, which is for me also helping me very much with what they have. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll perhaps touch on that kind of community link a little bit more later on when we get into the, how best to leverage the power of membership organisations and what you might be able to get from them. So I'm sure lots of people will be interested in that. From India, very warm welcome to Suchitra, who's joining our panel for the first time today, who's an independent enterprise and leadership coach. Welcome, Suchitra.
Thank you, Nick, and pleasure to be here. My journey has been to do with more support to teams and also understand how to drive agility at every level. So thank you so much would love to have more interactions and learning from everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Suchitra. And that's very much what we're all here to do, to learn from each other and also from the great questions that are coming in from our audience all the time. So it's really nice, to see you here. So that's really great. Thank you very much. Michael Easson is an Agile learning consultant. He's working here in the UK with QA. And welcome, Michael. Tell us a little bit, please, about yourself and your role.
So I'm Michael. In my role with QA as an Agile learning consultant, I not only help deliver bespoke training solutions and learning solutions, but I also do some coaching, some mentoring, as well as build our community in QA around agility itself and try and level up the learning. It's great to be here.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Michael. We'll be digging into your experience and the contact time that you have with your clients on a daily basis a little bit later on. So you're most welcome. All the way now from Singapore, we welcome Jamie Donoghue, who's the director at VisionLed, boutique consulting and training organisation, and actually an author as well. So hats off to you, chapeau to you, Jamie. And he's the author of the Business Agility Works framework. So hi, Jamie. Really, really nice to have you on the panel today.
Thanks, Nick. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, based in Singapore the last 14 years, originally from the UK and also half New Zealander. Background is in consulting and training, and since 2017 into the world of business agility. And as Nick shared with the Business Agility Works framework that we're launching with the Agile Business Consortium that was mentioned this year.
Okay, all right, great. So we're going to touch on all things ABC, Agile Business Consortium, and lots of different ideas around organisational agility as we go through. Now then, if you're watching on LinkedIn or on YouTube and you feel that you could actually answer some of the questions that are coming up and you'd like to join us here on the panel, then we welcome contributions, as you can see already, from people all over the world. So please do put yourself forward. Click on the little link below, register, and tick the box that says you'd be interested in becoming a panelist with us. So look, let's introduce our last member on the panel today. Suchitra is joining us from Bangalore in India, and Suchitra is fulfilling the role of question master. So hi, Suchitra, and please may we have the first question.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here. The first question is from Pauline in Bradford in the UK. Why is organizational agility important?
Okay, Jeroen, kick us off, please.
Yeah, of course, if you don't react on things that are happening, well, you either miss the opportunity or you get hurt by a threat, because we live in a changing VUCA world, so better take the opportunities and make the best out of it.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on there. One of the things that has become very clear in the past has been when organizations have got entrenched in doing things in certain ways and they very quickly get overtaken by their competitors. It's not necessarily that what they have to offer is wrong. It's just simply that they can't adapt quickly enough. Jamie?
I was going to say exactly the same thing. And for larger organizations, they may not realize that organizational agility is important until it's too late and they've lost, significant market share to much smaller, more nimble competition. And it's very difficult, I think, in 2021 to get customers back.
Yeah, it's certainly true. It's a very different relationship now that we have as organizations with our own clients, and that loyalty that perhaps we might have been able to count on at one time isn't necessarily long lasting at all. They could be wooed away by other people. Satya, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. The idea is, as Jim Highsmith says, right, our journey of organization transformation or organization agility is about predicting and understanding change as an opportunity, not as a threat, that he directly communicates. And I also directly connect with that idea is how to look at change from every angle, right? How to look into change and how your organization are adaptive enough, how you're comfortable enough. I mean, you're more proactive. You go into a more proactive approach of understanding not just teams, not just the individuals, but again, overall business dynamics. That is something I feel is more important now. The meaning, in the case of the meaning, per se.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that you're right there. It's been an interesting situation most recently, hasn't it? Because there's been so much change in such a short period of time. It has truly highlighted, if you like, it's shone a little light into those dark corners of organisations where they have been struggling in order to be able to keep up with a sheer pace, if you like, of change that's required. And that agile mindset, it's the way of thinking more than anything, I would say. It's that kind of, how do we work together in a collegiate and a collaborative way in order to be able to make changes. Michael? Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
I would also highlight the point that organizational agility also helps your staff, the people that you work with. Having a good culture and a good ability to trust and be open in your organization will be able to be more aligned with your vision and want to stay with you throughout this very volatile market that we're going on just now. Sure, a lot of us have seen the Great Resignation sort of blog posts and everything going on just now. But when you've got a really good, solid platform around agility, it powers towards people being drawn towards something bigger than just themselves, or perhaps chasing paycheck as part of a change, and they feel empowered to be part of that when organisational agility is achieved.
Yeah, and it's certainly an opportunity for situational leadership to develop far greater in organisations. You know, we look historically to the hierarchy of a business or a non-profit, and we say, okay, you know, what are the people in the C-suite, the leadership team, what are they actually saying? But at the same time, we have a whole range of different informal leadership networks within our own organisations, and hearing what other people are saying and how they are managing in the uncertain times. It's a very influencing factor. It's a very strong influencing factor. So thank you very much, panel. That's great. Suchitra, let's pick up on the next question now, please.
The next question is from Nick in Wokingham in the UK. Where would you start to establish a culture of agility in an organization beyond their software development teams?
Okay, Guy, and then Jeroen.
Yes, well, there are many answers to that question. There are many ways, many places you can start. And I reckon each of the panelists could come up with something different. But I would certainly look in any of the operational departments where there's the enthusiasm for it, where there's the thinking is starting to evolve in terms of Agile. And the HR department comes to mind. It's the department where they're likely to be engaged with all of the employees. They're likely to be in a position to influence the organizational structures. They're likely to be able to influence the silos. So I would choose HR department.
Okay, thank you. Right, thank you very much, Jeroen.
Okay, well, there could be a top-down or a bottom-up approach. Top-down, if in the software development, the CIO is very enthusiastic, maybe he or she can motivate the business as well. It can also be bottom-up. While software development will be in Scrum teams, well, you should have the product owner there. Let a product owner be of the business and make sure that that product owner supports the product owner aligning with all the other business stakeholders. And that's how you can show them how the agile way of working works in software development, but can also work in business process improvement, in marketing, in all kind of opportunities.
Thank you very much. And Satya?
Yeah. So rightly said by Jeroen, the idea is understanding the values and principles. What is the mindset is all about. I've been working with marketing and also human relationship. I'd love to call it human relationship. So the idea is when you look into organizational agility, when you are trying to apply these practices beyond IT teams, there are so much disconnect about our mindset about what exactly we are trying to apply. Sometimes when you look into, say, your pure IT and software team, it's like it is for IT things. That kind of approach is coming up. And that is where we are breaking the silo. That is where there is need of people to understand the mindset, the approach of it. We are challenging 200 years of management practice. We're not just challenging one idea. We're challenging so many different ideas at different levels. When you understand the mindset part of it, what is the objective of it, how you can be humble, how you can be more agile in the way you think about it, that is something I think there are so much involvement, and also organizations are looking into that kind of level of clarity about in transformation. When you look into agile transformation, that those things are evolving. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Satya. And we could hear you clearly. The video's gone a little bit squiggly, but I'm sure we'll sort that out over time. And final comments on this one then from Jamie, please.
Yeah, I was going to start maybe predictably, but I think importantly at the top, because, from organizational agility isn't a brand new topic. It's, within the last 4 or 5 years. And there are companies that have been successful and companies that have not been successful. And from what I have seen is that if the tone is set at the top, that the organization is embracing Agile, and it's a very strong and a very consistent message, then it does filter down through to the other departments.
Okay, thank you very much. Suchitra, let's move on, please. Next question.
The next question is from Louise in Reading in the UK. What is the most important thing for an organization to get right to make them agile?
Okay, let's go to Michael first, please.
Thank you for the question. It's a great one. The most important thing for an organization to get right for me is their culture. Right all the way down to the one, why are they there? What do they exist for? What's their purpose? And having that at the core then builds out and resonates out. It goes back to what Jamie was stating as well. Then if you can get that right for your organization and then the top level of the organization resonate around that and build a consistent message out, you can always point back to that as the North Star towards your journey and say, are we still achieving this? Is this vision still the right thing?
I think you make a really good point. Guy, will come to you, and I'd really like to hear from one of the folks that works closely with the Agile Business Consortium as well about how the membership might kind of answer that kind of question. Guy, go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with Michael. And something else that's really important is making sure enough people in the organization and enough of the leadership really understand what Agile is. Because there's the extremes of being very dogmatic about it, as opposed to the other extreme of really knowing nothing about it, but using the word rather glibly. And Agile is about adapting. It's about inspecting and adapting to the situation in your organization and to your culture. So getting a good understanding of what Agile really is and what's going to work for you. Thanks.
I think that's a really good steer. Certainly from a cultural perspective, how we think about culture, the manifestation of values and beliefs in an organisation. How are those values and beliefs expressed on a day-to-day basis? And that can be evidenced. How are we working? Are we holding on to the power and the privilege of information? Are we actually enabling others in order to be able to take evolved decisions in a faster and a more timely fashion? These are important expressions, and that's how people measure culture. It's how they witness it on a day-to-day basis. Last word, Michael, and we'll move on.
I think it's just an interesting insight into the framing of the question as well. I don't think the goal of any organisation should be to make themselves agile. That's the vehicle towards the goal. You should never go out there aiming to become agile. It's sometimes where I see a lot of organisations tripping up, spend a lot of their time and effort trying to tick the boxes that exist in our ecosystem to say they've achieved it, but actually they could be thousands of miles off course from where they want to be or where they need to be in this organisation.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, thank you very much. Sasha, hold that thought, if we may. We're going to press on now. And Suchitra, we've got a lot of questions to go through. So let's go on to the next question and pick up the pace a little bit, if we can, please.
Yeah, we have a question from Michael in Edinburgh in the UK. What is the difference between business agility and enterprise agility?
Okay, what would we say, panel, is the difference between business agility and organisational agility? Jamie, go ahead.
Yeah, I think for all three, so business agility, enterprise agility, organisational agility, from what I've seen in my research, it's just vernacular for different parts of the world, how we're perceiving, whether we call enterprises, do we call them businesses, do we call them organisations? That seems to prefix the word agility.
I think certainly enterprise does tend to be a label which is used more in the commercial world, necessarily than perhaps in government or in service organisations in healthcare and so on, are rarely described as enterprise, even though they possess many of the similar characteristics, very large workforces spread out over multiple sites, trying to keep pace with improving the quality of their service delivery at all times, and those kinds of things. So to a certain extent, semantics, but it might also have an implied difference as well. Go ahead, Michael.
I have seen it described in a way that business agility is the overarching outcome that you're aiming for, where enterprise agility is one of the many capabilities required to achieve business agility. focus perhaps in more the process areas or in your finance or marketing areas, things that really drive your business forward. And that's how the Business Agility Institute necessarily frame that difference between the two. What does the panel think on that? I'm interested.
Okay, it is an interesting thought. It's a kind of what fits inside the umbrella term. What is the overarching term? Jeroen, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's good that you be agile on the outside and the environment of your organization. It's also good to be agile within your own internal processes and techniques and culture.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Suchitra. Next question, please. Very thought-provoking questions that we've got today.
We have a question from Emma in Reading in the UK. How can I encourage my team to move from the traditional and comfortable ways of working to a new, more agile approach?
Okay, so it's all about the journey, all about the change here. Yes, go ahead, Jeroen, and then we'll come to Jamie.
Yeah, well, if an organization hasn't done that, then see what the competitors of that organization are doing and how they are growing and improving. I would say take the examples outside of your own organization. And then the organization will learn, okay, if we don't do anything, we probably, will fade out.
Okay, all right. So use the example of somebody else in order to be able to evoke that change, Jamie.
Yeah, I believe you have to be agile in applying Agile. And, you're fighting maybe 50 or 100 years of very well-refined processes. It's very difficult to show something in comparison which is equally as mature. So I would look at picking your battles and looking where you can run experiments and just running them in parallel and saying, okay, traditional versus Agile, which one is better for our case? And you may find sometimes traditional works better and sometimes Agile works better.
Yes, certainly being able to measure the outcomes is an important part of this. There are folks who have said, look, we've tried these initiatives before, they've never worked before, why would they be different now, and so on and so on. So being able to, find, discover and collate some evidence to support plan A versus plan B, or maybe even run those two things in a kind of a shootout style comparison, so that you can do that A/B testing and see what the difference is a really good idea. Next question, Suchitra.
We have a question from Sally in Hive. Do you think it's valuable to an organization to express new and different ideas, to be different and to take risks within reason?
Okay, so do we feel that it's valuable here for an organisation to express new and different ideas? Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
I think it depends on the industry. So if you're in a rapidly evolving world like digital transformation, software development, it makes sense. If it was toilet paper, I wouldn't appreciate it so much.
Okay, well, you never know. I suppose, you're right. There are some highly regulated industries that have very tight frameworks that we need to work with. Michael, go ahead, and then Sachin.
Just follow up on what Jamie said there. It's contextually based. However, I would also say give your employees and your colleagues the chance to define what those are. Allow a culture and organizational space for them to go try new things. They're your best resource of being able to know what is going on, and they could have some amazing ideas that are going on there. It comes down to, for kind of phrase, but it comes down to betting, really. What are good bets, what are bad bets? Allow flexing both ways and see what comes out. You might have absolute goldmine in the toilet paper industry, but you won't know until you create space for that to come out.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I do remember it's not in that industry, but it is in the paper-related industry where somebody invented the idea of only putting the sandpaper on one side of the box of matches back in the 1930s. And it saved an awful lot of money and improved the profitability of the company that manufactured them. No end. So innovation can happen. Final comment on this before we go on. Sachin, go ahead.
The idea is how much, your risk appetite and also organization's risk ability, how much they can have the ability of sunk cost, that also comes into play. When you're trying to be innovative, of course you expect innovation at every level, but what is your risk-taking ability as an organization? Sometimes it's lesser, sometimes it's highly risk-taking abilities are we've seen in organizations. So that depends on different scenarios, as Jamie and also Michael voiced out. It's more to do about your risk appetite.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Risks can be mitigated. I think all innovation, has a degree of risk associated with it. It's really just thinking through what perhaps might be the unintended consequences of doing something, and being able to share an idea with a range of people and helping to get them on board to help you out and figure out, does this fit within our regulatory framework? Does it fit within our commercial risk appetite? Does it fit within our reputational risk appetite as well, which is an important element to consider and to bear in mind when you're trying out new things. Next question, Suchitra, please.
Your question from Nick in Wokingham in the UK. What are the panel's go-to websites or authors on organizational agility?
I put this question in, so I'm not actually going to answer it myself. Jeroen, go ahead.
Yeah, agilebusiness.org, the website of the Agile Business Consortium, is you can get a great amount of information there. Of course, for more details, you need to be a member of the Agile Business Consortium, but it gives you a nice benefit.
Okay, so you can start there, agilebusiness.org. And I think one of the folks who's watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn, if you could actually just pop that website into the chat for everybody, I'd appreciate it, so that listeners and viewers can see it. That would be great. Go ahead, please, Michael.
In terms of author, I would recommend Ahmed Sidki, Dr. Ahmed Sidki. He is the president of the Business Agility Institute. He also co-founded IC Agile, the Accreditation Board. He has recently created his own website, ahmedsidki.com, and he's dropped an entire treasure trove of content and learning all about organizational agility and business agility for free. You don't need to sign up to watch his videos, read his content, and genuinely very, very lovely guy.
Interesting. Does he have a presence on YouTube as well, Michael? Do you know? Does something head?
I think he has a couple of videos on YouTube. I think a lot of his videos are linked there, so you'll be able to find his videos through there too. So yeah, he's currently the sort of head of Agile at Riot Games as well. So he's an active practitioner as well as.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, that takes us neatly up to kind of halfway through our show today. So with that in mind, we're going to shift gears a little bit and focus in on our topic for discussion today, which is all about overcoming barriers. Now, many of our experiences when change happens is that some people embrace it and others resist, some quite strongly. And we've probably all been in that situation ourselves where we've not been clear about the way forward and how best to embrace it. So in this short session, Jamie's going to share some of his experiences and thoughts on how might we best overcome those kinds of barriers to embracing greater organisational agility. After which we're going to come back with questions. Now, if you're on Slido, just click on the second tab on the Focus Topic tab, and that's the place where you want to enter your questions for Jamie. He's going to take us through now for the next 10 minutes, and then we'll come back to more Q&A after that. So go ahead, please, Jamie.
Thank you very much, Nick. So yeah, just again about myself. So I'm the creator of the businessagility.works framework. That's another reference that you can have if you're looking for free guidance on business agility, aka organizational agility. Next slide, please. So just a reminder, and this was one that came up in the question, the first Q&A session, was about the purpose of agility is not agility. To me, the whole business agility movement was really solidified back in 2015 when the chairman of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, made a comment about the change in organizational strategy. So instead of organizations trying to become very big leverage economies of scale and dominate over the smaller players. It was the much smaller players who were more agile. They could deliver value faster to customers than the large enterprises, and they won more customers as a result. So you have the analogy there of the fast fish eats the slow fish, or a speedboat versus a cruise ship. So those large organizations were now at a competitive disadvantage based on their size and their structure. Next slide, please. So in our research, when we were coming up with the framework, we uncovered 7 organizational challenges, and we built the framework around these challenges. And now, I think as you look at those 7, there isn't anything on that slide which is going to be a surprise for you. If you've worked in any reasonably sized organization, you would have encountered at least one or maybe all 7 of these internal challenges. But all of these challenges hinder in some way our ability to get that competitive advantage. So let's look at the first one. Next slide, please. So resistance to change really comes down to that you cannot force somebody to change. You can't make me eat food that I don't want to eat, and I can't make you eat food that you don't want to eat. So we have to look at, why does someone resist a change in the first place? So what is the real reason why somebody says no, or I don't like it, or I don't agree? Well, it's typically that from their involvement has they've either not been involved, or they felt as though they've only been told rather than consulted. And, they're being forced into something like a carrot and stick approach, or being beaten over the head, being told you must change your direction. So the way to overcome this particular challenge is to realize a shared vision. And I think if you ask yourselves an honest question, how many of you have memorized your company's vision statement and could recall it now if I asked you to? I've been teaching business agility for the last 4 years, and maybe only once or twice has someone ever been able to recount a vision statement. Now that tells me something very important, that person doesn't know where the company is headed, and they're just coming into work, they're doing as they're told, and then they go home at the end of the day. Well, with this approach, you really don't have people who are passionate and people who are coming into work to make the vision a reality, because they don't even remember what it is. So the way to overcome the challenge of resistance to change is to invite the organization and the customer as well, if you wish, to co-create the vision and the direction of the company. So the more people that co-create, naturally, the less resistance to change, because you wouldn't resist what you had created. Next slide, please. The second challenge is around functional silos. So we're all used to the typical organizational model of marketing department, HR department, and this way of organizing, 20, 30, maybe even 40 years old. And it comes from a realm of thinking where an organization can gain competitive advantage if it has functional superiority over its competitors. So if my HR department is better than your HR department, then we win. However, that isn't what we're typically selling, unless you're in an HR specific organization. We are selling products or services. So that is what the customer knows us for. They don't know us for our finance department. They don't know us for our marketing department. The other downside of being in a functional organization is that when you try to build products or services, you have to hire a project manager typically, and that project manager is then overlaid on top of the functional model, thus creating the functional matrix. However, the reporting line is still to the functional manager. So the project manager is trying to whip a team together to build something to make the company successful, but only has limited buy-in from the participants within the team. So the alternative is to rearrange yourself around what is your core business. So what are the products and services that you offer, and to build teams that are long-lived, that can build a product and run the product through its usable life. The downside is that a matrix is still a matrix. So we have to be aware that Agile is not a silver bullet. And usually the horizontal always suffers at the expense of the vertical. So in the product or service matrix, you have teams which can be agile, they can understand their product and service, they can be very close to their customers, but their participation in functional events, such as how do I build our capability in data analytics or software development, that division of time can still face the same problem as in the functional matrix. So we must be aware of that. The functional matrix, product matrix is still a matrix, and it still has the same inherent issue. But maximizing autonomy and building an organization around what it is that we sell, what it is that we want to be famous for. And next slide, please. Internal challenge number 3, multitasking, or the myth of multitasking, has been studied quite intensively over the last 10 years and is now referred to as context switching, because we can't actually multitask. We can only think about one thing at a time. But depending on our age, some of us can switch context quicker and some of us slower. But one interesting study, and this diagram on the right-hand side there is from Harvard Business Review, and they did some research and stated that approximately the jumping between tasks of, between projects or different tasks and stopping and starting actually causes 2 hours of unproductivity or a loss of productivity each day, which if you think about an 8-hour day, that's a significant portion of your day, adding up to 546 hours per year. So the general guidance here is that instead of multitasking, focus on a limited amount of tasks, finish them, measure your time to value, and use that time to value target as a measure of as a baseline measure of how quickly you can realize value quickly. But limit your amount of work in progress. For challenge number 4, bottlenecks. Bottlenecks can be your least agile team, your least agile division, your least agile person even. It could be a system which is slow, but bottlenecks cause waste to accumulate. There is a very famous book on the topic of bottlenecks, or aka constraints, which is Eli Goldratt's book from the 1980s called The Goal. But the object here is that we're trying to be agile. So we want to reduce as much waste as we possibly can within our system. The more waste we reduce, the more lightweight we get, the easier it is to change when something is lightweight. So if you require 3 signatures to get something done, do we need 3 signatures? Can we reduce that? Can we even automate it perhaps? So looking for bottlenecks, looking for other forms of waste, and Agile brings in a lot of guidance here from lean thinking. So reduce bottlenecks by minimizing waste. Next slide, please. Okay, number 5, the challenge of mindset. This is a tricky one because nobody is ever wrong. Or I should say, nobody is ever deliberately wrong. So when I make a statement, from my perspective, I'm correct. When someone else makes a statement, from their perspective, they're correct. So it's very difficult to say that someone is wrong based on their opinion, because it's how they perceive the world. So the way to overcome this challenge is to remove any or as much personal bias as possible. And so it's not what do I personally think. It's we've got to have a clear goal. We've got to have something measurable, something that we can all look at objectively. And when we look at the data and we're trying to decide what should we do next, it's based on the data. What do we think is the most appropriate course of action? Now, even with the same data, 2-3 people in a team may still have differences of opinion. And that's why it's always good to be agile when you're applying Agile. If we have 2 or 3 good ideas, we can't really pick between them. Why don't we run 2 or 3 experiments, look at the data again, and use that as an indicator of which is the right path to take? So remove personal bias by using data to drive your decision making. Next slide, please. For number 6, for people management, in a lot of large organizations especially, they have annual performance programs. So your training needs are thought about a year in advance. Your performance is measured on a year in advance. The problem with those schemes is the time frame. It's very difficult to say in 2021 what we're going to do for the next year. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we could be more accurate with predicting the future. But today, to do anything 1 year in the future is already a significant amount of time. And I've been in the training business a long time. I have encountered in many, many training courses, when you ask a student who's attending your course, why are you here? Oh, I need to run a project, so I'm in this project management course. I say, oh, that's very good. And I say, when is your project? It's next year. Now, if you look at the diagram on the right, the curve of forgetting, that's sometimes called the forgetting curve or the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. It's not an exact science, but it just shows you what logically you already know, is that the longer you leave something, the more you forget it. So if you're looking at annual training programs and you're saying, okay, in June you will have your slot for training, are you able to apply it around June? If you're not able to apply it, then June is the wrong time. So you should continually develop competencies in your specialism as close to the time frame that you actually need to use it. I've also put in there about psychological safety as well, which is very important. You'll hear about this a lot in all Agile articles. One of the things is that there's no one way to be Agile. We can't go to a process manual and just copy and paste the incident process, change process, right? We may have done in the past. There is no one size fits all. So we're going to fail. We're going to make mistakes. One of the things we have to think about when we're managing our people is that we have a culture that embraces failure because it makes us more successful in the future. And the last challenge is around time. Very hard to add more time to the day. So we have to divide what we have and be logical. If your people are working 150% of the time, then there's no point adding a innovation system platform like Microsoft Yammer, where people can share ideas. When they're already working 60 hours a week, when are they going to share ideas? So the guidance here is that we have to allocate the time for it to actually happen. And there's an example breakdown there for you, and only an example. Putting in time for your BAU activities, for your experiments, for your knowledge sharing with your teams, for social activities, and buffer, because you never know when the phone is going to ring. So you can refer to those slides after the session. Also, if you want to get more information, you can go to the businessagility.work site and you can read more about those particular topics as well. But thank you very much.
Okay, really, really interesting. Thank you, Jamie. And a fantastic summary, for us of huge depth and breadth of your experience and information behind all of that. So really, really brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for bringing that to life in the way that you have. So I know that we've got questions stacking up in Slido that people are interested in hearing the answers from the panel. So let's come to you first of all with the first question. Suchitra, if you could read that for us, and we'll hear from Jamie first. Okay.
We have a question from Ellie in Hambledon in the UK. When an organization is trying to become more agile, how do you overcome long-standing existing processes in departments outside of the project teams, for example, in finance or marketing?
Yeah, I would say don't challenge finance or marketing as your first thing that you're going to do. I would really look at what is the product or service that you really need to have as your competitive advantage. And then I would just build a team around, that product or service. And you may, in fact, need people from finance and marketing. But I would look at just demoing it for one product or service, showing the value, showing how it gives a competitive advantage. And then hopefully that is a catalyst for it to grow within the organization.
Okay, thanks. Jamie, Jeroen?
Yeah, Jamie, I agree with you. I would expect that marketing, anyhow, will be a little bit more opportunistic because they know that, hey, new customers, new opportunities. So I think that for them it's not a big difference, but changing, improving your business process, well, if you have a clear business case for that, then finance will certainly also be willing to accept that and react on that.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And I think you're right to kind of flag, that there are different, functions with different cadences and, different levels of, ability, if you like, to join in as the very, very early adopters of different ideas. So let's move on to the next question, please, if we may, Suchitra.
We have a question from Nick in Wokingham in the UK. Can the panel share an experience where they were able to overcome resistance to change?
Okay, so this again is kind of from me. So I was just interested really to find out from other folks on the panel, if you've got an example that you could share, suitably anonymised, of course, of where you have been able to overcome some of those barriers. Go ahead, Jeroen.
Well, starting with small training of people in an organization where they became enthusiastic, which raised up to the management level. And then from the management level, yes, then the whole organization changed. I think I'm allowed to mention this specifically as NXP Semiconductors. In the past 3 years, they now have doubled their shareholder value as well, and they're still growing. And they're using very much the opportunity of the corona crisis to sell more.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. It's always nice to be associated with something that turns out well. So that's really, really good. So thank you very much. Anybody else? Jamie, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the resistors I found to business agility is in middle management, who may feel that their delegation role is being eroded by teams being more empowered. So what I like to do is preempt that panic. And when I'm delivering, sessions on business agility, whether it's in consulting or training, to really highlight these new unfilled roles that sound perfect for middle managers who wish to retrain. I found that that's a good way to deal with a potential resistance to change.
You're right. I trained the middle management as well, Jamie. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. Good insight there about reaching out to those, who are going to be, challenged either because of their situation, their management role, or their responsibilities, and so on. So, very interesting. Thank you very much. Very insightful. Suchitra, next question, please.
We have a question from Gary West. What do you think are the critical success factors for implementing agility in the workplace?
Okay, critical success factors. Then, Jamie, we'll start with you and then go across to Michael, I think that's.
I just go back to the presentation that I just gave and said that if you look at overcoming those 7 internal challenges as your critical success factors, because each one will hold you back in some way.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Michael, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think it comes back to what are you hearing from your people around you as you're working. Notice those small, nearly inconceivable sort of conversations that are occurring. Are people feeling more empowered to do something? Do they feel and do you hear that excitement from them, especially in this day and age where everything's virtual? Can you jump on a call and can you hear people wanting to solve problems? That's getting that right and trying to get that, reading that culture through them it's so important to be able to get to the future of the team.
Yeah, good point. Thank you, Michael. Very insightful. And Satya?
Yeah, for me, maybe how much happy your customers are, how much happy your employees are. I think these are 2 parameters I would like to see if I'm trying to apply agility into different teams and organizational agility. How happy my customer is, how happy my teams are. I think these are 2 parameters I'll look into.
Okay, it's a good point. We were just talking actually recently about sentiment analysis, the way in which there's a range of different machine learning, AI-driven tools that you can use to go out and look at how is your brand, perceived in social media and measure the sentiment of the comments that are being, made and so on. Now, for very large organisations, this can be sometimes the only effective way of measuring, kind of the mood, if you like, of very, very large customer bases. Or at the other end of the spectrum, you can just ask people, who you're working with, and kind of, try and get a sense of the barometer of happiness, if you like. There was I think some time ago, there were measurements, weren't there, about thinking about from a population point of view. Was it the Kingdom of Tibet that were looking at trying to measure not gross domestic products, but actually they came up with a measure for gross domestic happiness to try and understand how citizens felt about change in their country. It's really interesting set of articles actually on the Country Tibet's website all about that. So do have a look and a little bit of essential reading for you there. All right, very good. Well, look, thank you very much indeed, panel. It's been a really interesting time. Jamie, thank you so much for your insights. There were a couple of things that you mentioned that have really struck a chord with me, trying to get a sense of measuring the time to value in terms of productivity and thinking, am I doing it differently? Is it actually making any real kind of difference, if you like? And also just looking beyond ourselves, and reminded me of a quote from a book on pragmatic marketing, which was talking about the opinion of the individual versus the data that was driving decisioning. And I think I'm misquoting it, but it was something along the lines of, your opinion, whilst interesting, may be irrelevant. So it's always good to get the data and use the data to at least inform, your decisions and so on. So very good, thank you very much. So look, before we kind of finish that, I would like to invite the panel to share their kind of, closing thoughts really from this session. So we're going to start at the top and ask Michael to go first, and then Suchitra, I'll come to you next. Okay, so Michael, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for giving the time to come along and talk and be able to answer some questions. My main takeaway would be, again, probably trying to drive home that thought process of Agile and Agility are not your destination here. They're not. The outcome shouldn't be to getting it in place or implementing it, copying or lifting and shifting somebody else's procedure for you. All about getting you to that destination, trying, failing sometimes, and that being okay, as long as you make a learning from it and then move forward. That's true agility. And when people around you understand that and build towards that, you're going to make a great team.
Thank you very much indeed, Michael. Really appreciate it. Suchitra, and then Guy.
I've had a great time asking questions to our panel, and it's just been a great learning experience, learning from everybody's knowledge and experience. And on a topic that is so pertinent during these times, achieving agility is one of the key organizational drivers. And I also learned from Jamie's slide about allocating and managing time to maximize productivity. So that has been a key takeaway for me.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure you'll be managing your manager very soon on that one as well. So I kind of look forward to that. Thank you, Suchitra. Guy, and then Satya. Yeah, sorry, Guy, can't hear you at the moment.
How's that?
Perfect, thank you.
Good. Yes, if you look at the questions asked and the responses from the panelists, going agile is as much about change management as it is about agility and learning about agility. So if we're not good at change management, we're not going to be good enough at getting agile in either. So really got to focus on the people side, the change management side, as well as the agile thinking side. and maybe think about seeing it as a journey, and it's not a big bang kind of approach. Find those key areas where you can get the early adopters to get involved and help pull the rest of the organization along.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Some wise words. Thank you, Satya and Jamie.
Thank you so much, all the panelists. I learned so much in the journey. So I echo with Jamie's concept. One very interesting idea is I normally echo the same voice. Multitasking and perfection are myths. If you have reached to the perfection, that means you have completed the whole cycle. That means there is one way to look into that. And second point that I really, really like in the discussion is about how we are moving more towards proactive approach about understanding agility. It's just 20 years down the line, the journey. Again, when you look into the journey, it is understanding more, learning more. Thank you so much for giving that opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you also for bringing your insight, your experience to the panel, Satya. It's been absolutely delightful. Jamie, and then Jeroen will give you the last word on this one, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you very much to everyone. I'd just like to echo Michael's comments from before that, organizational agility is not the objective, it is the means to the end. So you have to have a very clear goal and then see which methods, whether it's agile or not, help you to achieve that goal.
Thank you very much. I like the sound of that a lot. I made a note of that a little earlier, so I'll be acting on that one. Jeroen, from you?
Yeah, I would say be agile in implementing agile, because there are also very much methods and tools on which you can do. So, use Scrum more for the smaller things. Use the Scaled Agile framework more if you have, let's say, a more stable organization that you want to improve more or less as a software factory. But if you have really time-driven business improvement events, please go for the Agile project management methodology. For the strategy, of course, the Agile business analysis, and agree the Agile change agent are very useful things. And hopefully that will learn you definitely that business agility works. So I fully agree on that as well. And the only thing in improving your business, if you are already making good steps in the digital transformation, because you get more and more and more information, and to be able to do something with that, you also need the digital transformation to be able to be flexible in your way of working.
I think you're right, and thank you very much for highlighting the interdependency and the different threads of what we need to be able to learn about and understand, as a professional working in this space. There are so many different threads now that make up, the weave, if you like, of us being able to be fully performant in our roles. And that's something that, triggers ongoing learning for everybody, including ourselves here on the panel. So great job, everybody. Fantastic. Thank you very much to everybody who was driving the show in Slido for the questions that you were setting for the panel to answer. That's why we had such a great time today. So thank you very much indeed if you made your contribution. Next Monday on the 13th, we've got 2 more opportunities for you. Join us a little earlier at 7 a.m. BST, which is 11:30 in India, and 4 in the afternoon Australian Eastern Standard Time, as we discuss more about cyber resilience. Now, cyber resilience is something that we're all needing to get to grips with. We've got a particular focus next Monday on bringing your own device, using your own infrastructure when you're working from home, different devices that you're using to be able to access your day-to-day work on behalf of your organisation, on behalf of your employer. And later on, the same day, at the same time, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, British Summer Time, 2 in Europe, and 8 o'clock in the morning over in the US, we'll be talking about public-private partnerships and how best to develop winning teams. So if you're involved in partnering with organisations that supply PPPs, or are involved in engaging and commissioning PPPs, or in delivering PPPs, then that's a really great event for you to get involved with. The Slido events are already created, so if you're thinking right now you have a question that you want to put into those, then by all means just ask away in the chat and we'll give you the Slido event numbers for those. Alternatively, if you just use the QR code that's on the screen, you can subscribe to the show, and each week we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up next and how best you can join in, either online to ask your questions or join us here on the panel and level up your career along with the rest of us here at APMG. So thanks very much, everybody. We'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.